teach an old dog new tricks. Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions and routine requests? The average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. Hiring Brooke means absolutely no call goes unanswered, boosting your customer satisfaction and reducing your overhead costs. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend.
Necessary, whether to a service advisor, roadside assistance, or a live agent. And I can do it without missing a beat.
You really do check all the boxes. Book with Brooke today.
Everybody wants to be part of a bigger story.
We're a small company, but we're going to change the whole industry.
And a thank you to our sponsor, special thank you. And of course, Gail is on the call today. I just have to switch this up.
Yeah. So Gail, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Rapid Recon's giving Ian and I each one of those G-Wagons to drive. What are you going to do for us?
Yeah, right. Where's my G-Wagon?
All righty.
That's funny.
So.
That's a nice gift.
Yeah, wouldn't that be?
Right.
Alrighty, so episode sponsorship is still available. A few books this morning: Hire with Your Head, Recruiter Secrets, and Untapped Talent. Another book that's a little dated, but I'd highly recommend is this one I'm reading right now called Up the Organization, written in the 70s, updated for the 80s version. Still current. Really like it, actually. Really recommend. So go ahead, Jeff.
Of course, as usual, we want to do our disclaimer here because this keeps us out of trouble and covers our proverbial behinds. But the views and opinions expressed on the AutoHub show are those of our guest speakers and don't necessarily reflect the official opinion of the AutoHub show or Ian Nethercott and Jeff Polo. And if you'd like to look that more in detail, please look at it on our website.
And the show today is about attracting and retaining staff in 2022. So I'm going to go ahead and move us over and go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And as we move into our podcast world out of our live Zoom, we always like to appreciate and recognize anybody that tunes in that isn't a guest. I'd like to first of all welcome Gail Rubenstein, our platinum sponsor of Retail Resilient and regular on our show. Thanks for being here, Gail. And whomever BP is, thank you very much for tuning in. And in all the podcast world, thanks everybody. We appreciate you being here. Today's topic is attracting and retaining staff, and do pay plans help and do that as well? And it's very interesting. As before I introduce everybody, I noticed something online on LinkedIn yesterday. There's a gentleman out there called Dan Price, who we all have heard of, and many of us have heard of, from Gravity Payments. And he's the CEO of a tech company that a few years ago he he basically took all of his employees and guaranteed them a $70,000 a year income, a minimum. And he gave up his salary of $1 million to do it. Now, of course, he's the CEO, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened is his employee satisfaction went through the roof. And not to mention the fact his business went up and therefore his stock value, which takes away all those arguments of people saying he's a communist and everything else. But what he did was he said, a lot of people said at the time that would destroy his business. And his revenue has tripled. His customer base has doubled. 70% of his employees have paid down debt. Many bought homes for the first time. Their 401k contributions grew by 155%, and turnover dropped in half. He actually has, he posted a job, and he had, what was it, Ian? He had
30, he's in new roles, he gets about 30 applications for each role. Something like that. Yeah.
And I'm actually going to put on the chat one of the comments that somebody made on that, and I won't bore you here. But, well, it's not boring, but it's definitely worth a read, and it's something people in the car business should pay attention to. But last but not least, they're going to introduce our guests today, and thank you so much for taking the time. First of all, is no stranger to the AutoHub show, which is Sandy Zanino, founder and CEO of Innovative Auto HR, fantastic dancer on hiatus while she works on her foot in a boot. And Sandy, say hello and tell us a quick bit about yourself.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here as usual. And a lot of people know me. I am, you gave a great introduction, Jeff, so I'm not going to say it again. Anyway, I'm just really happy to be here. It's my happy topic, right?
And I have to tell you something. You're always smiling. You're always positive. Every post, everything I've seen of you. And are you going to be an NADA?
I am going to be at NADA.
I can't wait to meet you in person.
Can't wait.
Next, we have someone who's been here before as well, Scott Trainer, who's the COO of USA Motor Jobs and National Manager of Canada Motor Jobs. Unfortunately, he's abandoned Montreal. I don't know why in the winter to Florida. Scott, say hello and give us a short comment.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm very sad to not be in Montreal right now with the cold weather. It's, but no, it's we've really taken off, and I'm glad to be back here on the show.
Thank you. And last we have AJ Holst. I had you down as hoist. I apologize, which would really be great for a fixed ops guy. But first time on the show, thank you for joining us. You're an independent fixed ops consultant. Used to be in North Carolina, but now you're in Maryland because you got grandkids. And welcome, AJ, and please briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you too.
Sure, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. A little bit about me. Actually, today, President's Weekend, I celebrate my 37th year in the automotive industry. I started 37 years ago. Started as a salesperson. I sold cars for about 12, 13 years. Wanted a little bit more stability, and things like that. So what I ended up doing is going into the fixed op end of it and became a service consultant for many years. And then, of course, I became a service manager, a parts and service director. And then for the past 10 years or so, I've been doing some independent consulting pretty much all over. And so a long time in the business, and I'm fortunate that I do know both ends of it, which is really nice.
That's terrific. Not a lot of people can say they have lots of experience in both ends of the business. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over to Ian for the first question, and I'll copy that comment that person made too in the chat. Yep. Ian.
And happy President's Day in the U.S. And for our Canadian listeners, happy Family Day in some provinces, including the one I'm in. Also, just so you know, Jeff and I will be live in Las Vegas, Nevada. More details to come soon. We're going to be doing some live podcasting from the show, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone at the show as well. I will also be at NABDAT. We're going to have a booth right next to TechYonge, which should be pretty interesting, just because they're sort of the new entrant into the CRM business. Very well funded gentleman from Tesla. But anyway, let's start with some questions. Can different pay plans attract and retain staff? Let's start with AJ.
Good question. And this is something that's always been a hot topic about pay plans. The first thing I want to talk about is when you're dealing with pay plans. Let's talk about incentive bonuses in terms of signing people on to get people. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it sends a poor message to the people that you already have in terms of retaining them. If you're going to give somebody a sign-on bonus to come on to you, I think it sends a bad message. As far as pay plans is concerned, when you're dealing with the fixed ops end of it, specifically your service consultants, your service managers, I think you have to have a pay plan of a salary. You have to have a mixture of things. You have to make it fun. You have to make it competitive. You want to have a salary. You want to have a commission based. You want to have a CSI kicker in there. You want to have spiffs. But spiffs, you want to have spiffs that change often. You don't want it to be stale. You got to keep it changing often. And the other thing, and this is probably the biggest thing when it comes to pay plans, it's got to be easy to understand and easy to explain. Can they turn around? Can you ask a service consultant or can you ask a service manager how you get paid? If they can't explain it to you like very simply, then you're losing money because they don't know how to make money. They don't know how to work their pay plan.
Great answer. And actually, there's an interesting, particularly a technical point of view, from a technician point of view, from a dealer locally, and it was on a couple calls where we talked about this. One of them was either offering the tools that new technician needed at no cost to them, or allowing them to earn those tools, kind of like a signing bonus to join that dealer. But anyway, go ahead, Sandy.
Sandy. Oh, there you go.
Thanks. Yeah, I had to unmute. It's a great question. I completely agree with AJ when it comes to the ease of understanding the pay plan. I think my answer to that question is it depends, right? Like, can a pay plan be a tool? So if it's employed correctly, yes, it can be a tool for attracting and retaining. I do think that it needs to, I call it the neighbor rule. Like, someone outside of the automotive industry should be able to easily understand how anybody, whether it's in sales or whatever, is making their money, without it being in some giant spreadsheet. It should be easy to understand. I think that this is really important as we look at the generations that are filling our workforce. As we saw in the video before we started, right, and before we went live, the employment environment that we're in is unprecedented, right? It actually started before the pandemic. I was talking about the labor shortage. It's not been a secret to people in my profession. We've known that 2024 for many, many years was going to see a labor shortage, because it is demographic, right? It's about working age people and the number of jobs. So I don't know that I agree completely with AJ, like, about the sign-on bonuses. I think they can be a good tool and part of a pay plan, and in order to be competitive, because a lot of employers are utilizing them. So in the end, it depends, and I think we should look at what the generations that are filling our workforce, millennials and Gen Z, are looking for.
Great answer, Scott.
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with Sandy. There's a lot of variables in this. Sign-on bonuses, we have employers posting some with sign-on bonuses. I'm really trying to urge employers to say, hey, how about try retention bonuses? This is kind of the conversation I'm trying to have with them. Stop trying to take a tech from another store, and just keep yours. Keep them happy. Give them the retention bonuses, because the ones who are employed at your store who see the $5,000, $10,000 sign-on bonuses, how do they feel when they've only been getting a 50 cent or a 75 cent an hour pay raise, yet they see these big bonuses going out? Sign-on bonuses can be good in terms, use the example for the tool allocations. We partner with some schools, so we know what some of the schools are, what some of the dealers are doing with some of the schools, is that they are offering the students out of school to fund their tools, but that's earned. So after 6 months, you'll have earned X amount of the tools that the dealership purchased for you. After a year, you basically paid it off. So that's how they're really gaining them in, and it's really accommodating the new generations. Like Sandy said, the millennials and Gen Zs. You really have to cater to what they would want as well. And it's not just salary. Yes, salary is a huge thing, but company culture is really where it's at now as well. So you don't even just have to sell your salary. There can be a candidate who would much rather go for a job at $70,000 with a better company culture than one at $85,000 with no company culture.
Fantastic. Jeff?
Well, it's very funny, AJ, how you brought up the difficult pay plans and how they're set up. And I remember when I first went to F&I, my pay plan was so confusing, and it went up by 2 points if we had a higher percentage of insurances, and another point in the warranties, but you got paid less if it was just dealer reserve. And in the end, you spent your time figuring out what the heck to do. So a question for you is, why is HR, staff retention, attracting people, why is it such an issue in the auto industry? And I'm going to go to AJ on that, because fixed ops is no better than variable.
There's HR departments in the car business.
Well, you know what?
Sorry, I had to say that.
No, you know what, Gail? It's funny you say that, because the long and short answer to that, in my opinion, is that automobile dealerships, especially in the retail space, have historically been behind the times. It's 78% male. It's very, very hyper masculinity, with egos as big as a house, and they don't want to admit when there's something wrong. They don't want to admit exactly, what they can do, and they're real happy to sit around in a 20 group and try to figure out how to, save pennies but spend dollars to get it. It's like they're always behind the times. But again, from an HR standpoint, I just don't think that I don't want to say that they don't care. I just don't think that they know the right questions to ask. And then are they open-minded enough to accept the correct answers, especially now in today's society, the way the workforce is going? I hope that answered your question.
By all means. And it's funny how you mentioned that about the 20 groups and saving pennies. I follow I follow a group on Facebook called Car Dealership Life. And it's really quite enjoyable to read it. And most of the people on there are techs. And one person wrote that he said, why is it I had to sign a waiver on OT? And literally the next day, the dealer showed up and showed off pictures of his new boat. So it's very interesting that. Sandy, what's your take on this? Because, of course, this is your life.
It really is my life. And it's a great question. Right. And I think there is a word that can answer it is culture, is probably, why it's such an issue. I love how AJ flipped it on its head. It's not only 18% women, it's 78% male, right? White male. I think that we in the industry have a bad reputation, and that is until we can really flip that around, there's not a lot of interest in the world for people to join this industry, right? Like we need to create, because it is an amazing industry, right? People can come into automotive, not have a great big, you don't even have to go to college, right? You can make a wonderful living. I think that everybody knows what my hashtag is, right? Hashtag protecting profits. To me, that's the baseline of what HR is. And I understand why dealers, you would think I had like a bazillion clients, right? Like everybody should want to talk to me because I've been in automotive. I have since 1998, 20 of those years, I've been working in human resources, and I'm certified. I mean, like I know my shit, right? You'd think that a lot of people will be talking to me, but dealers have so much other compliance, right? Like I understand it. There's a weariness, so that when HR comes along, it's like, oh my God. And HR is typically the person who's delivering the news that nobody wants to hear. Right?
Sandy, I don't mean to interrupt you, but HR has turned to, and my daughter-in-law is in HR, so we've had some spirited conversations about this stuff. But HR has evolved into, you're the people that's telling the owner that your baby's ugly.
It's always been that way, really. It's like, for example, a dealer that I worked for 20 years, his affectionate nickname for me was PETA, right? Because I was the pain in the that was coming to tell him.
That's funny.
Right? But over the years, we built a trustful relationship, right? Like if there's any advice I would give to a dealer, it's like, trust your HR, right? Because sometimes while there's a balance that if HR can understand that your customer service for everybody, right? The dealer, the managers, and the employees. And when it's been my experience that can just create, yes, AJ just put in the chat, a qualified HR person. So often HR is looked at as
the owner's daughter.
Yeah. Well, not, or the controller or the office manager, all wonderful employees, right? It's that basic compliance that is always a challenge, right? And that can create losses of profit loss. I could go on and on about that, but I won't. I will be quiet now, but basically culture and a bad reputation.
Hey, Sandy, we didn't have you aboard to be quiet. Wow. I have too much to drink somewhere. No, we didn't have you aboard to be quiet. So we'd love for you to share your expertise. I used to work for a dealer group that had 6 stores and 200 and some odd people. And the HR department was the CFO. Mm-hmm. And the funny part enough is it was actually a great company. Then they did some changes around and they hired an HR person whose job was to fire people. Mm-hmm. And that they were the person that had to do it.
I am going to actually jump back in, right? Because I feel like this is really important. And things are slowly changing, right? Like I just got off of a call with a client and they have promoted somebody and I am mentoring and training this person to be their HR manager, right? It's a great group. And they have found the right person, I think. And so I think that it is kind of changing, and it is a blessing for me to be able to use my expertise and help her in benefits and help her learn what she needs to do in order to begin to create a culture where they will be able to retain people, right? Beginning with onboarding. So there are some changes, right? Like things are happening. And if you have somebody in your group, in your industry, who has been there for a while, they're loyal to you, they love working for you, and they're hungry to learn, I would recommend sending them to either get certified, for some education and get somebody to mentor them.
It's so hard for me to stay quiet in this conversation because there need to be more people like Sandy, that can help car dealers, because in my experience, it is the manager who's the HR. The manager on the sales floor is actually the HR, and their attitude, morals, and values dictate how that whole team operates in sales and service. And it's kind of scary, actually. So, Sandy, you are needed. You are, more people like you are very much needed.
As I said, you would think that I had, dealers banging down my door, right? But on the same side, I understand it, right? There is a weariness for compliance and the FTC just came out with all these new rules, right? So there is a weariness, right? I understand, but it's not rocket science and it isn't that hard.
I don't think we got Scott in there. What does Scott think?
No, I mean Sandy's really the expert. I don't know how I could top that. I'm not in the HR game. We're in a different part of the industry, so Sandy definitely knows what she's talking about. The HR, sometimes the HR in the talent acquisition team have different views. So that's something as well. Some dealers are running an HR to try do their talent acquisition, and some are HR just doing HR. Those are two very separate jobs. So I think it's very important that the HR knows their roles and is qualified enough for talent acquisition. Because I mean, my wife came from HR. She was HR at BMW, and it was a completely different mindset when she went to the acquisition aspect compared to managing staff. So two different games.
Yeah, so Scott, tell me, it's funny because Sandy brought up the word culture, and of course you're in the job of attracting people, and we also, you know probably better than anybody, except for maybe Sandy, how much it costs to replace a person without USA Motor Jobs part of it. What do you do with culture? How do you present culture? How do you know what culture to present to prospective employees other than what your client tells you?
Well, we're not a recruiter agency, so we really are just portraying the message that the employer is giving us. We're just a job board. But we do coach them. We try guide them along and give them how things have changed. We need inclusiveness. People want to feel appreciated. Many groups are now offering, because like Sandy said, we want to bring more women into the industry. We're doing a campaign right now to bring more women into the automotive industry. So that's really one of our missions right now. And dealers have even caught on where they're doing flexible hours. So for maternity, now they're giving maternity leaves. And if they need flexible hours because they have joint custody or because they need to be home with the kids, groups are now starting to understand that times have changed, and that's the message we're trying to portray on them. It's not the old generation that's willing to work 60 hours a week to make a lot of money but never see their family. That's not what people want nowadays. They want work-life balance. They want to feel included, and they want to feel part of the company while still having a quality of life.
Yeah, it's very interesting because some of the I love this term. I just started to use it. The OG is still in the times where they think you should put in 60 hours a week, and if you're not loyal. So, Ian, take it over, please.
Yeah. What are the top 3 things dealerships must do to attract and retain quality staff in 2022? Let's start with AJ.
All right. This can go on, but I have a list of about 8 of them. So what I actually did is I tried to narrow it down as best I could from what I see when I go into a store. The first thing, you have to perfect a consistent onboarding process. It has to be consistent and it has to be perfected. You can't deviate from it. You just have to stay the course. You have to provide, the next one, as I would say, is provide career progression and training. The people today, your younger generation, and I'm not going to pigeonhole them into millennials or Gen Zs, XYs, I'm not going to be your younger generation. Like Scott said, they want inclusion. They want to know what their career path is going to be, and they want to know how they're going to get there. And you have to provide that. So again, provide career progression and training, a trajectory basically a trajectory path, what the career path is going to be. And then, of course, culture. What's the mission of the company? What's the vision? And what are the values? What is it, and how are you going to achieve it? And I use an acronym when I go and I speak to dealers. It's called TEAR, TEAR. You got to train. You have to let your people know what the expectations are. Then you have to hold them accountable. And then you reward. Train, expectations, accountability, and reward.
I like that. That's good.
Very good. Thanks for that. Scott.
Sorry. Why is it cutting out? Sorry, it was cutting out. Basically nowadays, well, I mean, we've repeated it. We're repeating it again. I think that's the most important part is people want to know what they're getting into. They want to know realistic expectations. I mean, AJ, I'm stealing that.
You're welcome to it.
That's where we're at with the new industry, with the new generation, and you have to let them know how things have changed as well in the industry. You have to let them know that it's not what they thought before. We have to go out and get the new generation earlier as well. So you have to work with the schools. You have to work with the new generation. You have to teach them that the automotive industry is not what it was before, and that there is a lot of career possibilities. I mean, half of half the people that have a good social media following already have the basics and know how to market themselves, and they'll do great in the industry. So you really have to update what we're all about.
Sandy?
So, what a great question, really. What are the top 3 things? And I think that that dealers really need to start thinking about this. And one of the things that I've come to believe that in order, not just like surviving, right, but thriving into the future, that employers all over need to start thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, right? Not just thinking about it and stop being scared about it. What I see is that there is a fear of being canceled if you do or say the wrong thing. You know, there may be people who believe, who have realized that, like, you know what, I need to do something. As Paul Walzer, who was the chair, he's the outgoing chairman of NADA, said last year, you know, it's not just the right thing to do, but it's the smart thing to do, right? Because it's just fact. A more diverse workforce that reflects the community in which you operate creates bigger profits, right? Like everybody wins. And so that, AJ, is my number 1. I love that it was your number. I love that it was on your list, right? That is my number 1. And
it was hard. It was tough. I was, because there's so many things to talk about there, but that is a big one, and it's close to my heart in many different ways.
That's so awesome, right? It's very close to my heart too, right? So much so that I am now a certified DEI practitioner. I knew that I was not, as an HR professional, I have a ton of certifications, right? But I knew I was not prepared to move into this work. And I think that also dealers just don't know where to start. So I'll give everybody a quick tip where to start. Just do a demographic of the area in which you operate, pull your demographics in your store and compare the two. And it does not count if all of your employees of color are in detail and car wash. And it does not count if all of your female employees are in, I mean, they count, but you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? If all of your female employees are in accounting. AJ?
Something, and I hope I don't interrupt by asking this question, but I think it's important to what we're talking about. Sandy, you're an HR professional, and I think where a lot of people get confused. Explain the difference between equality and equity.
Okay, so I wish I had my slides ready to go. So, right. If you can, because there's a great slide. Maybe if you've done research, right, you've seen it. So picture a field and there's a game going on. Say it's a soccer game. And you have one person who is, and in front of the field is a fence, right? And if you're standing, that fence, you can see over that fence. Next to you is someone in a wheelchair. They cannot see over the fence. Next to somebody else is a little kid that cannot see over the fence. So, but everybody's on the same ground, aren't they? That's equality. Equity is when, well, real equity is knocking down the fence. so that everybody can see that. That's true equity. There's also another stage of that, I guess, where you have the short child is on a step stool so they can see over the fence. And I can't remember what the visual is for someone who is in a wheelchair to be able to see over the fence, right? So I hope that that helps explain what equality and the difference between equality and equity. Equity is about giving people access and opportunity, because the fact is underrepresented communities and do not have the same access or opportunity.
Love the illustration. If you have that, feel free to share it. I'm happy to post it for you.
Yeah, I'll find it. And
I actually have it. I actually have what you were talking about. And what I could do is I'll probably email it to you a little bit later, because I thought it was but it was very pertinent to this conversation. So I figured I would ask Sandy. I hope I didn't put you on the spot, Sandy.
It's literally my favorite topic. Right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Because
hey, AJ, if you could send it to Ian and Jeff at the AutoHubShow.com,
I will.
too, please, we could share that.
Absolutely.
So here's one of the reasons why I think this is so important, right? We talk a lot about culture. We talk about that culture is the reason. We answered that before in one of the other questions, like, why do we continually ever since I've been in automotive, we've been talking about turnover, right? We've been talking about the inability to hire female staff. We've been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. I believe that it is, the reason comes down to the exclusive culture that pervades in general automotive. And I'm not saying that every dealer isn't like this, but when you're talking about inclusion, if you can work on that, because the diversity is nothing without inclusion. It is nothing, right? And that starts with the leaders. You have to start educating yourself and really understanding the why, coming up with a why, right? Why is it that you're doing this? Because it's the right thing to do. You're doing it because you believe that it's going to create profits. You tie that to your business. You want to reflect the community in which you operate. And there are a lot of things that would go into, including what AJ was talking about, right? Like, I think my number 2 thing is building your employee value proposition. Scott was talking about it too, right? Like, employers need to have a proposition just like you do for your customers, right? There needs to be and write it down. Like, I have a little slide for that too. Like, what are those fears, wants, and needs, right? And how, as an employer, are you going to allay them? And just the last 2 days, I have seen commercials on TV, and on my Alexa was playing one. They are Amazon and Disney. It was Amazon and Disney. They are doing 30-second spots about why you need to come to this job fair and what's so great about it. Amazon, I learned, they start their benefits on day 1. And so that's the proposition that they are putting out there. They're marketing it, which is my 3rd thing. You need to create your employee value proposition, and then you need to market it, right? Disney they were doing a $1,500 sign-on bonus for a job fair that they're holding in Tampa, right? Like, and they are marketing this on 30-second spots. Amazon is also marketing, like, one of their commercials I thought was great. It was 30 seconds. It was because it connected emotionally with people. It did exactly what marketing is supposed to do. And it was a young woman who said, this is the first time that I haven't had to have 2 jobs. And in the world today, most regular people have 2 jobs just to make ends meet. She said, this is the first time I was making $10.42 an hour, and now I'm making $17.24, right? And then a thing comes on and says the minimum starting hourly rate at Amazon is $15 an hour. I thought it was brilliant. I'm not like I love shopping at Amazon, but they are brilliant at some stuff, right? And that we can take a page out of this, right? We can take a page out of this, and we need to change. We need to really work on that inclusive culture and what that means. Find out what people need. I recommend a book called Regenerate. It's about generations, and just real quickly, millennials, about work, their view on work is it should have meaning and align with purpose, right? Gen Z, this is how they think about work, kind of automotive-ish. Work hard, seek job security, along with a personal brand and a side hustle, right? So you've got these two different generations that very soon are going to make up 70% of our workforce. We need to come up with a value proposition. And
Sandy, I think what you're saying is fascinating, because that is true. They want a brand. I'm not that generation, but that is what I'm doing. I wanted a brand, and I wanted, like, they all want to be influencers, right? You want to be on social, you want to be an influencer, you want followers, and you want to build your following and turn it into a business. And there's a huge trend right now going on with e-commerce and doing that. And that's how a lot of people in the auto industry, that's what they're doing. They're trying to build their brand on social, even if they represent a car dealer or the car business in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
So I love that you brought that up, because it's so happening right now. It's crazy.
It's important, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it is. And that the personal branding in the name of the employer sends my HR red flags up, right? Because that, I think, is something that needs to be managed under the employer umbrella to make sure that there aren't any compliance issues. I haven't really seen any big nightmares, so maybe I'm worrying over nothing with that. But I love what you're talking about, Gail, and it is, I think it's really true. And another thing that I did want to mention is that, people are, I just talked yesterday to an employer who's trying to replace a technician, BMW. The guy was making great money, right? And guess what? He educated himself. He's now doing cybersecurity, right? Like, there are people leaving our industry.
And I think as well, with the industry, the message we're trying to get across as well, not just our industry, but obviously we're working with automotive, is that gone are the days where people are just sitting around waiting for a job. Everybody has a job. So it's now up to the employers to sell themselves why people should go work for them. People all have jobs. Now attract them. Be like, this is why you should come work in my store. This is why you should come work with our group. This is what we're offering. Sandy said it. Disney selling themselves, Amazon selling themselves. That's what employers need to do, which is even why we created with our portal. It's almost like a dating site what we created. The candidates are putting what they want. The employers are putting what they're offering, and they're seeing how they match up, because that's really what it is now. It is a relationship. And so you have to start by dating. You have to get to know what they're offering, what you're looking for, what matches. Is this good for my life? So no, employers have to now go one step above and sell why they are, because candidates are getting more and more scarce.
Well, they also are having a problem, I think, specifically on technicians. And I happen to live right near a Tesla facility where they fix cars outside of the dealership. They have a dealership, but they also have a standalone facility. And I was walking by, there was a bunch of technicians out there the day, and I was asking them, I said, oh, you work for Tesla. I mean, obviously you have automotive experience, because they weren't younger people. Some of them were quite older. And I said, how do you compare this job versus your job, working with oil and gas? And he said, well, I wouldn't go back. So it's not just they're competing against other dealers. They're competing against people fixing other similar vehicles that may or may not be the dominant factor in autos. So I think you're not only losing technicians or other staff to other industries or other roles or other companies, you're using the competitors that really just have a different job. The job is different. So that's another thing you really got to look at, because I think there isn't enough replacement people, but more importantly, are you asking that technician what they're up to? What are they doing, right?
AJ, you put your hand up. Hopefully it was first.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, for all I know, Sandy may jump right onto this as well. When you have conversations, I'm involved every Sunday morning with Service Drive Live, which if anybody ever wants to go onto it, it's great. It's free. It's at 7 o'clock in the morning Central Time, Service Drive Live. And it's a bunch of leaders, service managers, parts and service directors, parts people, as well as independent consultants. And we talk about what's going on with our business. And this was a topic that we spoke about probably about a week or two ago. And one of the things, to Scott's point, was what are you offering your folks? And I think Sandy had mentioned it as well about work-life balance, time off, and things along that line. In our industry, it's been one of those things where you go to work for the company. You work a year, you get a week off. Work 2 years, you get 2 weeks off. Work 5 years, you get 3 weeks off. And all that is you're creating burnout amongst your people. Then, so you're losing profitability, you're losing productivity, and you've got a cancer cell now that's spreading it to everybody else. So I got on and I started discussing something like PTO time. And I'm telling you, there was a panel of probably about 25 people, and nobody knew what PTO was. I actually had to break it down and explain to it and how it works. Something as simple as that, and this might go into the next question, that just dealers, they don't embrace because it's new and it's different and it's something that it's just something that's foreign to them.
I just want to add in a couple things because I don't know like the age ranges on this call, but so a lot of my employees are younger. I'm 40. My employees are all in their 20s and 30s, and how I got them to join our team, because we sell social selling for the car industry. We work 9 to 5. We don't work on weekends. They're allowed to take time off and work remote. So they all work remotely all over the country. There's no office. They dial in at 9 a.m. They can take time off whenever they want. They have to put it in the calendar, but it's not paid time off. They just want time off. They don't want to be paid. And they love it. Like, they love working like that. They love having the flexibility. They love working from home. And we tried to help a couple car dealers teach them how they could have a sales staff work from home and it could still function very, very well. Because you can have a front end of a dealership staff, the BDC department, the salespeople working from home, booking the appointments and bringing the cars to the customer, and it works just as well. So I think I mean, Sandy, I don't know how many dealers you work with, but in terms of HR and what people in their 20s and 30s want right now, dealers need to provide that, and they're just not doing it. To me, it doesn't make sense. We've helped maybe 2 dealers do it, and they were just as successful, if not sold more cars, when they let their employees work that way.
But Gail, you have to fill up your 200,000 square foot dealership with bodies.
Right, which makes 0 sense.
That's the mentality. Yeah.
I do want to move forward here. Sandy, if you quickly have a comment.
I do. I definitely do. Gail, I think you should write a white paper on those as you know, so that we can see what happened and follow up. I do want to say that when you're building that EVP, make sure that it is authentic, so that you're not marketing nirvana and then people get there and it's not what you have put out there, right? So make sure that it's real and authentic, or you will be, a new term is called work fishing. Like, I've been work fished, right? Like you start a new job and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, what did I do 3 days later when it's not being delivered? So
well, I do want to, as I say, move along. But Gail, I wanted to say that you said you're 40, and I want to let you know I identify as 40.
Nice. Nice.
I wanted to talk about this because we don't have a lot of time left, but this is a real big deal as far as Ian and I are concerned, because the worst attended shows that we have, by the way, the best shows are performance cars. The worst show that we have, the worst attended and the worst dealer attendance are HR shows.
Really?
Anything related to HR has very little interest. And I'll reach out to people that I know before the show for almost everything. And they go, oh yeah, and some I get, oh cool, yeah, I'll do my best to be there. I'm definitely going to check out the podcast. And the HR ones are, oh yeah, sure, bud.
Yeah.
And we talk about it, and Sandy doesn't know anything about this. Like, that's why she's always got the hair to one side to cover up all the bruises on her head from hitting it against the wall. But why do you think this is? Why do you think that so many dealers, we look on LinkedIn, the posts are, we're the best, our employees love us. Is it NADA or Automotive Remarketing that posts the dealer that, the best dealerships to work for and everything else, and they all love them, and yet every year it's different people. So Scott, I'm going to ask you this first because we've been talking all over you. Why do you think our shows have the least attendance, and do we need a catchy title? So we're always open to that. But why do you think this is in the industry, such little interest in HR?
I guess it's kind of a two-part answer, because I know what the next question is as well. HR in general is kind of the forgotten aspect of it, and most dealers just accept that's what it is. They're not trying to change with the times. Most, it's just, this is our company policy. So they're not always forward thinking. It's always, how do we do the next big sale? How do we train our next salesman? But they forget about the recruiting and the onboarding and so I don't even know if it's a title. It's just the ideology, the way, the mentality. People have to change it to realize that this is such a big aspect. Often I'm speaking with some talent acquisition from different dealer groups, and they're like, oh no, this is the way my group works. This is the way the ownership works. We're not doing nothing new. We're not trying nothing new. So it's a mentality, but I think it's about to change because they're starting to realize that all these years of ignoring HR and talent acquisition is starting to catch up to them. So I have a feeling more and more they're going to be interested. Maybe a catchy title, but times are catching up that they'll definitely need to be tuning into this, because they're all scrambling to try to fix this, find the solution.
I appreciate that. That's a very good point, and I hope you're right. And we normally try to stop on time, but we're probably going to be a couple minutes over, because I'm going to put that over to AJ and just get your opinion on that, because it's really important. And actually, I'm going to change the title HR to people.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think Scott's dead on as far as that's concerned. I'm gonna be a little bit more critical. I think it has a lot to do with ego. I think a lot of the people that are in charge at the dealerships, again, it's just like, I know better. I've always done it this way. There's some of them, some, not all, are reluctant to change. And with that reluctance to change comes a little bit of ignorance. Got to remember, we're talking about fixed operations. It's always been, and we've always talked about the variable end of the business. That's what dealers really, really concentrate on for many, many years. And now, with shortages with chips, not selling cars, and everything else that's been going around, fixed operations is now something that, if you don't know, you better well learn it. And if you do know it, you have to change with the times, because your workforce is getting older, they're going to be leaving, and you have to attract people, not for a job, but for a career in a tremendous industry.
Well, thank you. Sandy, I'm going to leave it up to you to have the last word here, because I don't know why, but what do you think? So again, people, why is it that we talk about a lot, but there's not a lot of interest?
When you figure it out, let me know. It has been the challenge for me as soon as I opened my consulting business, right? I tried humor, auto dealer HR, ain't nobody got time for that, right? And maybe it is changing HR. It's a shame that we have forgotten the human that's in human resources. I have heard some things like HR stands for human remains instead of it's an integral, people. I mean, everybody I know, most dealers I know say that our people is our greatest asset, right? So maybe looking at it as people, I don't know. I look forward to the next show as always, though, because I love these conversations.
Thanks. Yeah, we tried. Does your pay plan suck? That was sort of okay. How to afford getting fired? That didn't really track, which was kind of interesting. Maybe it's something around people, like how to attract crazy people or something. I don't know. Something that's.
Hey, Ian, I think we got to have a show called "Do You Enjoy Firing People?" maybe they'll turn in there, and it's very interesting. Ian, I'll leave it to you to close, unless any final comments from anybody.
No final comments? I don't think so. Don't miss our show next week. I know it's month end, but we're going to be doing a joint show with Fred and Lou from Car Guys and Coffee. We're going to be doing that on a somewhat regular basis, but it's our first show, so it's an open format, so feel free to join in on the 28th, I believe, which is next Monday, same time. If you're going to be at NADA Las Vegas, we're going to have some live shows at the event. We should have more on our website shortly. Definitely come by and be on the show. It'll be live. We're going to be at Dealer Policy for sure, and possibly other sponsors. We haven't yet confirmed all that yet, but we're looking forward to seeing everyone. Have yourself a great President's Day or Family Day, and thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Any final words, Jeff?
Well, I really enjoy this. I love having all of you on. Sandy, you're a lot of fun. Scott, AJ, I so appreciate you being here, and hopefully we can have you aboard some more.
Anytime.
And if you guys are going to be anybody that's NADA, I'm looking forward to meeting all these people I've met virtually. So I'm afraid I'm going to find out Sandy's 6'8", and but thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank
So
you.
it's fun. Thank you for having.
Thank you for having.
Have a good day.